Welcome everyone, it's Rena and it's spooky season. So today I'm doing a speed creation of a Filipino folklore creature called the Manananggal. I really hope I'm pronouncing that word right because I should probably ask my Filipino friends, but I'm lazy. So this video is going to be slightly different. I'm taking it to Reddit and I'm going to be reading a story about the Manananggal, and we will see what this creature is capable of. So stay tuned. This story was written by You Holly X Turn Me On 10 years ago. So this is going to be an interesting story. I just proofread it, and let's begin. Hey Non-Sleep, I've been lurking for a long time now and came across a story about Filipino folklore. It kind of inspired me to write about my experiences as a child. It's hard for me to write or tell about my experiences since I wasn't really sure if it really happened or just something a frightened child with an overactive imagination just happened to make up. But anyways, here goes my story. I am born and raised in the Philippines, and growing up, my grandparents often told me and my cousins story about the rich fear-filled culture. One in particular is of a female monster we call the Manananggal. Just a little backstory about the Manananggal. She is nothing but an innocent-looking lady during the day, but at night, she is a witch that can sever her body in half. The process is different among the places in the country, but the one my grandparents told us is that she has this magical oil she uses to massage on her body, causing her to split in half and grow bat wings, leaving her lower half from the waist down in her house in the woods, while her upper half flies around in search of fetuses to devour upon. Now in our village, stories went around every once in a while at 3 a.m. a Manananggal visits in search of a pregnant lady. An indicator would be the distant and pungent smell of fish sauce and the sound of the thing about the ticking sound is that when the sound is faint or far, it means the Manananggal is actually near. It is said that it's used to confuse its victims. Now, the story begins. I think I was 7 at the time, and while everyone was asleep in my family, I couldn't bring myself to follow suit. I was restless, but nothing in particular in my head kept me awake. I remember just laying there in bed, staring at the ceiling, when suddenly I hear a noise. Confused, I sat up on my bed and looked around. Nothing but darkness. I listened again. My eyes went wide. If I knew how to swear at that time, the F-bomb would be flying. I slammed my head into the pillow as a kid would normally do, and covered myself up in my magical blanket and trembled in fear. The noise kept ticking, and my heart was beating out of my chest. I was on the verge of tears. I weighed the options between screaming for my mom and not, because screaming might alert something that might eat me up that I was wide awake. I can't let that happen. Yes, I know that the Manananggal went for pregnant ladies, but at that age, I thought everything could just eat me up. The ticking noise went away slowly, as if the one making it flew away. I sighed in relief, calming a bit, and made the biggest mistake of my life, forgetting that the ticking noise going away means that the Manananggal was near. I waited a second, then removing my blanket. I nearly shat myself. That bee with an itch is grinning right at me, her bloodthirsty eyes staring right into my cold, frozen, wide eyes. Mother of Jesus! I screamed and noped the F out of there. I ran into my mother's room, where she welcomed me into an embrace. By then, I think I passed out of fear. The next morning, my mother asked me what happened, and I told her what was up. She laughed at me, and then told me how imaginative kids are, and how cute it was. This is why I still have my doubts, and even after her face is scarred into my memory. The thing though, at that moment, my pregnant maid served us our food and overheard our conversation. I saw her face froze and her eyes went wide. She looked at me and said, "You saw her too." I cried. That's so creepy. Oh my god. Like, I have chills just thinking about it. But this is such a great story. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to tell the second story. There's another one that was like right in the comments. I hope they're okay with it. This is by Polly Monkey. Person replies back from the story. I remember the stories my mother told us, my brother and I, about the tick-tick when we were younger. Our mother was Filipino and our dad was white, so we mainly spoke English in the household, and she always referred to the monster as tick-tick. My brother and I grew up here in Canada. Woo! Canada! So the story didn't really scare us because we assumed it only happened in the Philippines. Well, that changed one night. That's not good. One night, Mother told us about her encounter. When my mother was growing up, her family didn't have too much money, but they did live a somewhat wealthy life back home. Her parents owned 2 restaurants, and her house was fairly big, with many maids. I mean, it sounds like they were decently well off, but okay. One night, her and her sisters decided to sleep together in the living room. They threw their blankets on the ground, all sleeping together in this unorganized pileup. Her parents came down that night to check on them, and when everything was in order, they both retreated back to their rooms. This was during the time my Lola was still pregnant with my uncle, and my mom made note of that night. Okay. In the middle of the night, my mom woke up. She wasn't sure why she did, but she did. Trying to see if any of her sisters were awake, she eventually gave up and went to grab a drink of water. As she walked through the empty halls, she heard this distant sound. The way she pronounced the sound, as she tells us in this story, shot shivers down through my spine, even to this day. Now, her Lola always told her the stories of tick-tick, but my mom was really headstrong and wasn't scared by much. After drinking her water, she continued to wander through the house. The sounds had still echoed in the distance. Eventually, she arrived outside her parents' room. Door closed, she knocks on the door. Stopped. She opened the door, and she swore something jumped from her parents' bed to the window and then was gone. To this day, that story remains one of my most terrifying and fond memories of my mother. She passed in May due to cancer. I'm sorry to hear that. May her soul be forever resting in happiness and in peace. Because after we had fallen asleep, she waited until 3 a.m. to scare the ish out of us. Note, I was like 6, and my brother was like 9 during this time. She's a playful one. She's a playful one. She snuck into our rooms and quietly started making this I always been a heavy sleeper, but the whispering that woke me up. I screamed bloody murder and woke up and scaring my brother in the process, jumping out of my bed and running the F out. My mother unintentionally chased me out of the room, all the while I was screaming for help, pissing my pants. For the rest of my years at that house, my neighbors never let me live that moment of that night down. Oh, poor kid. Your mom was a funny one. She's mean. But I had to add that one in. That was too funny. But yeah, this is my creation of the Mananaggal. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you whenever I get to post next.